Now, in this lecture, we talk about another impact of climate change, global warming, which is extreme rainfall. Many countries in the world, including India, have seen a large increase in extreme rainfall. By extreme rainfall, I mean rainfall above 100 millimeters per day. Okay? This kind of rainfall causes flooding and lots of damage. Okay? Now, this increase in extreme rainfall is on account of three reasons. One is, of course, global warming. Okay? As the temperature rises, humidity increases, there is more moisture in the air. So, when conditions are appropriate, this water vapor will condense and fall. Secondly, we have seen aerosol also contribute to extreme rainfall, because they affect the number of liquid droplets and ice that are there in the atmosphere. So, aerosol also contribute to extreme rainfall. And thirdly, most of the world is becoming more and more urban. Okay? And urban areas are hotter than the surrounding rural area, because they are more concrete, and that concrete absorbs heat and stores it. And so, typically the urban areas are around 3 to 4 degrees warmer than the surrounding rural regions. Okay? So, this combination of urban heating, aerosol, global warming is causing an increase in extreme rainfall in cities, and many cities are facing serious threat of flooding. Okay? And in United States, they are predicting that the cities which will face a threat of flooding due to high rainfall will go from 100 to 700, 7 times in the next 50 years. Now, we saw an example of an extreme rainfall in Mumbai on July 26, 2005, and the amount of rainfall that fell in one day was 942 millimeters. To give you a perspective, in most years, Bangalore's rainfall is not more than 900 millimeters. Okay? So, 1 year's rainfall in Bangalore fell in one day in Mumbai. So, this is an unprecedented event, and you can see that it flooded most roads in Mumbai for a day, completely brought the airport to a standstill. Okay? And so, this kind of events are going to increase. Now, the other event we saw of extreme rainfall event was in the year 2013 June in Uttarakhand. Okay? In the month of June, suddenly around 14-15 June, an extremely heavy rainfall event occurred, which had not occurred in the previous 60 years. You see the rainfall increase in June in 2013 compared to the cumulative rainfall in other Junes. You see that June 2013 was unusual. Okay? That caused a major flooding and large number of deaths of tourists who had come to Uttarakhand in summer. Now, why does the extreme rainfall increase? Now, you must remember that humidity in the atmosphere increases exponentially with temperature. This follows the well-known Clausius-Clapeyron equation in thermodynamics, which states that the ability of the air to hold moisture goes on increasing with temperature. Okay? You can see from 20 to 30 degrees centigrade, the amount of humidity in the atmosphere in grams per kilogram has gone up by 11 grams in just 10 degrees increase. So, this additional moisture that the atmosphere holds will cause more rainfall. Okay? Secondly, rainfall is also proportional to the total amount of water vapor in the column. You integrate the amount of water from the surface to the top is called column water vapor. Okay. And as that increases, rainfall increases sharply. You can see this increase, it is exponential. This is a measurement in Nauru Island in West Pacific Ocean, and you can see that up to 60 millimeters of total water vapor, nothing much happens. 65 onwards it starts increasing and goes up 4 to 5 times. This is rainfall in millimeters per hour. Okay. So, a combination of exponential increase of humidity with temperature and exponential increase of rainfall with water vapor, these two combinations make extreme rainfall much more common today than it was 50 years ago. So, global warming has made the highest contribution to the increase in heavy rainfall events. And this is shown in this paper by Mukherjee and others, published in Weather and Climate Extremes about 6 years ago. This is a historical rainfall distribution, the number of extreme events defined by rainfall above 100 millimeters per day. Okay. And then due to human induced warming, you can see that previously the number of extreme events per year was not more than 3, okay, very rare. Okay. Now, it is quite common. So, this change in distribution is what we are seeing in many parts of India and rest of the world, and this is something to which we have to adapt to. This will continue to get worse in the next 50 years. Now, in the urban area, in addition to the risk of higher rainfall, extreme rainfall, our ground is less pervious, that is, rainfall does not penetrate the ground because of concrete. So, you can see that in very heavy rainfall occurs, the stream flow increases very rapidly and then decreases when compared to surrounding rural areas. Okay. In rural area, the soil can absorb the moisture, the vegetation can absorb moisture and release it slowly, but in urban areas that cannot happen. So, there is more and more flood in urban areas because of increase in extreme rainfall and low porosity of the urban land. Okay. So, again this is a double jeopardy caused by increase in extreme rainfall and lower porosity of urban surfaces. Next, we come to agriculture. Climate change has a huge impact on agriculture because temperature has a huge impact on plant growth and plant health. Okay. So, people have analyzed the impact of global warming on yields of cereal crops. A recent review by Jin Wang and others published in Climate in 2018 shows that areas like India, China, Africa and South America will have a lower yield of the crops compared to the colder countries. So, the plants that we grow today in tropics have been chosen because they were suitable for the temperature that existed in the tropics hundreds of years ago. Today, because of the global warming, the climate is not suitable for the same crops. Okay. While the colder countries like Russia, Europe and America, conditions are becoming more suitable for the crops. So, Indian Agricultural Research Institute has done a lot of research on this issue, and Dr. P.K. Agarwal has given this insight that crop yields start decreasing when 1 degree warming occurs, but it continues to increase in temperate climate up to 3 degree warming. So, the present global warming is in favor of Europe, Russia, Canada and North America, while it is unfavorable for India, Africa and South America in the tropics. Okay. So, all the data that has been done in the Indian Agriculture Institute show that the yield will go down. Okay. But there is very little information on what happened to fish and other livestock. I also pointed out that livestock will be affected by heat waves. Okay. We have no information on pests and microbes. So, remember that as climate changes, the kind of pests and microbes that will become more common is not clear. Okay. So, there is still a lot of uncertainty about how agriculture will go down, because we do not know much about how pests and microbes will evolve during global warming. Okay. Now, this data shows that during June, July, August, the Kharif season, the temperature will go a little less than in the winter season. Okay. So, carbon dioxide increase will benefit photosynthesis somewhat, and in some areas in monsoon rainfall may increase, but in winter the rainfall will decrease. We produce wheat in winter most of the time. During that time rainfall will actually decrease. Okay. Now, you can see that the grain yield is going to current yield is here, it is going to go down as the temperature increases, and even theoretically the potential yield, maximum yield that you can calculate based on models, even they will decrease. Okay. But our demand is at 2020 at this level about 4 tons per hectare production, but very soon it becomes 3 degrees warming, our yield will be less than the demand. Okay. So, that is the concern of the IARI. Okay. So, the challenge is our demand is going to go up and our supply is going to go down unless we are able to increase our yield or manage the risks that climate change is posing. Now, climate change has 2 different impacts on crop yield. As carbon dioxide goes up, photosynthesis increases, yield can go up, but as the temperature goes up, yield will decrease. Okay. So, this is for wheat, calculation for wheat. So, you can see that there is a very different impact of increase in photosynthesis and yield decreasing with temperature. So, the temperature goes up beyond 1 degree and 2 degrees, in North India the yield will decrease. Okay. So, this is a huge challenge for India, which has to be tackled through change in the variety of wheat and rice we grow, or to increase in area in which we grow crops. So, the problem is that the global carbon dioxide emissions, which are above the global average, is among all the developed countries in the world, and all the developing countries that per capita CO2 emissions below global average. Unfortunately, the impact of climate change will be in the developing world, while the developed world will benefit by the warming. So, this issue is a very serious issue of what is called equity, that is, countries which contribute least to climate change will be most affected by global warming. Okay. So, this was raised a long time ago, or more than 30 years ago, by Parry and Rosenzweig, they showed using 3 models that the change in cereal production in developed countries may increase by around 5 to 15%, while in the developing countries it will reduce by around 10%. So, global warming is very unfair to the developing world, because their crop yield is going to go down at a time when their population is still rising. And in addition to rice and wheat, we should all worry about other crops. Here is an example of data on apple, yield of apple in Himachal Pradesh. So, apple growing areas, the yield has gone down by 77% between 1981 and 2007. 26 years yield has gone down, and therefore, in Himachal they are trying to move to higher altitudes for apple cultivation, but you can imagine there is a limit to how high you can go in the mountains. So, there will be serious consequence to the apple yield. Now, the next major threat of course is cyclones. So, cyclones are born primarily over the ocean, and as they move over land, as the animation here shows over Florida and Caribbean, they cause huge damage. Okay? And so, the serious question is, due to global warming, will the number of cyclones decrease, and will their intensity also go up? Now, we can say with great confidence that the intensity will go up, because the energy for the cyclone comes from the ocean. As the ocean temperature goes up, there is more evaporation of water. So, the intensity of cyclones will increase with global warming, but the number of cyclones we are not so sure about, because that depends on various other dynamical factors whose change we cannot predict very accurately. Now, in India, cyclones occur either in the pre-monsoon season or the post-monsoon season. During the monsoon, cyclones are less, because during the monsoon there is a strong flow of wind from the west Arabian Sea to India, and at the upper level above 5 kilometers wind blows from the east. So, this wind blowing in 2 different directions at the lower level and the upper level does not allow the cyclone to form and grow. Okay? So, there are very few cyclones in the monsoon season, but there are a lot more cyclones in the post monsoon season, okay? Like October, November and early May. So, the number of cyclones has shown a slight decrease, which may not be connected to global warming, but due to changes in weather patterns. Okay? But the issue is not the number of cyclones, but number of intense cyclones. For example, the damage the cyclone causes when it comes into land depends on the category. Okay? There are now hurricanes with category 5. Hurricane, cyclone and typhoon are interchangeable terms used in different parts of the world. We call it cyclone. In Pacific they call it typhoon, in America they call it hurricane. So, if they reach category 4 and 5, that means the wind speed are above 200 kilometers per hour. They are highly destructive, they cause huge damage and flooding. Okay? So, this is going to increase with global warming. And this is shown by the paper by Emanuel published in the Journal of Climate, and you can see that with the doubling of carbon dioxide, category 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 2, 3, 4 and 5, these cyclones will increase in the future compared to historical data. Okay? So, we have to learn to deal with these extreme cyclone events. Fortunately, because of the improvement in weather forecast models, we are able to predict with greater accuracy where the cyclone will land and its track. So, in India, the number of deaths due to cyclone in the east coast of India has declined substantially because of better short term cyclone forecasting. Okay. But the damage the cyclone causes cannot be changed. Okay. That will continue to increase. Now, the other risky part is that because the ocean is warming rapidly, cyclones are behaving in ways which it has not done earlier. The cyclone called Freddie, which started near Australia, and it was there for about a month, intensifying as it went across the Indian Ocean, southern Indian Ocean, across Madagascar, went to Africa and came back. This kind of cyclone, which had a life of about 1 month, which is very unusual, can cause a lot of catastrophes. So, cyclones will appear in new areas, they will last longer, they will be more intense, and if they hit land, they will cause a lot of damage. So, this is the future we have to deal with, and as I pointed out, because of better short term cyclone forecasting, we will be able to save lives, but we will not be able to save property. Now, we are only concerned about human beings, but as the ocean warms, the marine animals face a huge threat. There are marine heat waves which are making life very difficult for fish and other large mammals. We saw earlier that elephants will face a major threat due to global warming, because they are large animals which cannot dissipate the heat as well as the smaller animals. Same thing is true for marine animals. Large animals like whales cannot tackle marine heat waves because their ability to dissipate heat is limited. And here an example of increasing marine heat waves. Okay. Over land we saw a small increase in heat waves, but in ocean it is much higher. Okay. From the past to the future, there is a very sharp increase in marine heat waves, and this is going to cause serious effect on fish and other living beings in the ocean. And this is discussed in a recent paper in Nature Communications about the risks to marine animals. Okay. So, the number of marine heat wave days has increased rapidly, and some of those are connected to the El Nino event in the Pacific. During that event, marine heat waves are much more, but even otherwise the marine heat waves are increasing. Okay. So, this issue, which causes coral bleaching and death of many fishes and larger mammals, is a serious issue. Okay. Now, in India, there were many serious continuous heat waves between February and April 2022. Okay. Now, this heat wave was not in May, but in February to April period. So, it did not cause so much problems for human beings, but it has a huge impact on agriculture. So, heat waves in February to April will cause a decrease in wheat yield in North India, okay, because that is the season where wheat is grown in India. So, Professor Vimal Mishra and IIT Gandhinagar has studied these impacts and has warned that this will have serious consequence. Now, because of increase in land temperature, there is a new phenomenon called flash drought. Flash drought, those droughts occur for a short period, 5 to 10 days, because of not only low rainfall, but higher temperature. Because of higher temperature, evaporation goes up rapidly and the roots of the plants become very dry. Okay? So, the flash drought is a consequence of both reduced rainfall and higher temperature that occurs over land. Okay? So, these flash droughts pose a major threat to agriculture yield, and this has been documented by Professor Vimal Mishra and his group, and they have shown that in the period 1971 to 2000 there was a small increase in the frequency of flash drought, but in the future 100 years from 1971 there will be a much higher frequency of flash droughts, which will be 2 to 3 to 4 times larger. Now, these are very serious issues. So, Indian Council of Agricultural Research published a report on the heat wave in 2022, its causes, its impact and what to do about it. Okay? So, this is an issue for India in the period February to April. These heat waves may not have a big impact on human beings, but they have very large impact on agriculture. So, the total number of both heat wave and rainfall deficit flash droughts are going to increase in Europe, America, Africa and South America. So, the numbers are going to increase, and in the 20-year period from 2020 you can see there were 90 flash droughts in parts of the Amazon. Okay. Now, climate change also increases the length of the growing season. Okay. Look at the Tibetan Plateau. The growing season started around June 15th in 1965, but it has occurred earlier and earlier by 2010. So, it has occurred earlier by 15 days. So, this is another important impact, that the growing season is changing, for which human beings have to adapt, but you must also realize that animals also have to adapt. Birds and other animals have to adapt to this changing season on account of global warming. Okay. Now, the biggest impact of this changing season is the melting of glaciers. Here is a picture of the West Rongbuk Glacier near Everest. The photograph taken in 1921 and the same region photograph 2009. So, in 80 years lots of glaciers in the Everest region have retreated back, and you can see that lots of areas are exposed now which have no glaciers. Now, Professor Kulkarni at our center has documented the fragmentation of glacier in the Chenab Basin in the Himachal Pradesh, and you can see that from 1962 to 2001, you can see that the larger glaciers have declined and smaller glaciers have increased. Big glaciers are broken up into small glaciers, and small glaciers increased dramatically, the large glaciers have declined. Okay. And here is the consequence of glacier retreat. After the glacier retreats, the ice melts and you form lakes. These are called glacial lakes. And here is a number of glacial lakes in various parts of the world. And you can see in Indian and Asian Himalayas, there are around 2000 glacial lakes. with an area of 1256 kilometers squared. Okay? And here is one example of a glacial retreat which has resulted in a lake. This lake is formed or the glacier retreated, and what is here is what is called a moraine. Moraine is the debris that the glacier has pushed forward, and that forms a dam. This moraine dam shown here blocks the lake from decanting, okay, that is coming out. But at some point this dam becomes weak and the lake water comes out. This is called the glacial lake outburst flood, GLOF. This GLOF is a serious issue in the Himalayas because a large number of lakes have formed during glacial retreat and the moraine dams are breaking. And we have had one event in 2013 when the Chorabari glacier just north of the Kedarnath temple had a GLOF event in June 2013 during a heavy rainfall event we discussed earlier, and this caused huge damage to the Kedarnath temple and the surrounding areas and killed thousands of pilgrims. And last year, October 7th, 2023, a major glacial lake outburst flood in Sikkim resulted in there was a dam in the Tista river in Sikkim which was completely damaged during this event. And so this is a major issue not only for the loss of life, but also for the dams. There are a lot of dams we have built in the Himalayas, and these dams are under a threat due to glacial lake outburst flood. Now, climate change can also change the course of a river in these areas. Okay? This occurred in Canada in the area called Yukon. Many of you may not know about it because not many people live there, so it didn't cause much loss of life, but it was a dramatic event where a glacier which was supplying water to two rivers, one flowing southwards to the Pacific Ocean, one flowing northwards to the Arctic Ocean. The glacier retreated and one of the rivers was completely dry in a couple of days because the glacier did not supply ice to that river. Okay? So, the water is now only flowing into this region, is not flowing along this river. The river stopped. Now, because people do not live there, it did not cause any damage, but if it happens in India, if a major river stops flowing because some glacier retreated, it will cause catastrophic damage. Okay? Now, when glaciers retreat, they also release new viruses. So, this is another threat we have to live with, and this event occurred in Kazakhstan. 200,000 saiga antelope died because of virus infection which was caused due to temperature rise in that region. Okay? And this was documented by veterinarians from the Royal Veterinary College in London. Now, our ability to tackle climate change depends upon the hazard which we discussed, many hazards, whether we are vulnerable, whereas where you are living. If you are living near the Himalayas, you will get more GLOFs, and our adaptive capacity. So, when these three come together, we have a major threat due to climate change. Okay? So, with this I will conclude my discussion on impact of climate change. I will discuss the impact of climate change on monsoon in my next lecture. Thank you.